following is a live presentation of North Beach Television.
We are broadcasting live at the Lions Club, courtesy of North Beach TV. And this will be repeated on Channel 68. Eventually, we'll wind up on YouTube. And before we begin, I want to make a comment that we have 4 candidates here, 2 opponents, or 2 positions with opponents for each one, and they are running for school board. And I think that it's very important that we listen to what they have to say. It's a big deal to run as a candidate. I'm getting quite aware of that. It's even a bigger deal for you to know in the audience and at home who is the better person to vote for, who has the ideals and vision that you hope to have involved in the school district. And our school district has some needs that have been accumulating for a long time. So I'm thankful that the candidates agreed to come tonight. And as I have done always, and I also want to thank everybody that's here because Ace Hardware Ladies Night is tonight, and they chose to be here. Thank you very much. Give yourself an applause. We need to thank Channel 68, Coast Communications. We are broadcasting live, courtesy of North Beach TV, and that includes Daryl Prowse, John Reed, Scott Johnston, and our, is it Joshua? No. Pardon? Noah. It's Noah. I need to say those names 3 times and hear myself say it. And Noah, the assistant. And we have Rick Beveridge on audio. We have Dave Bunch, who has done all of the posters for the events since August. We have Janet, the timekeeper, is taking a break, and Mike is back. Mike Avelio, thank you very much for being the timekeeper. We have to thank the Lions Club, Gary Johnston, Jeff Moyer, Voice of the Shores. This could not happen without a village putting it together. I want to thank everybody, Jane especially, Nancy, Janet. We've got a whole crew that I'm thankful for. Oh, let's see. I brought the treats for the last 3 weeks. I just want you to know that they're good. And eat your heart out. And we want to thank the candidates and the citizens of Ocean Shores and all the volunteers. I think we'll get started. We're going to start, and we'll take turns. We'll just start with Rickie and go down the list, and then next time, Jeff, you'll start with answering the questions, go down, and each one will have a chance to go first. And as I said, normally our routine is to go ahead and have questions and have you pick the questions out without knowing what they are. But because there's 4 of you, just the amount of time that I was thinking and the logistics of not knocking over a mic, I thought it would be better just to ask some of the questions first. I'd like for you to get started. You have 3 minutes to start to give back your background, and we'll go from there. Rickie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. I've been retired for 6 years. 32 years before that, I was with the Department of Defense. The last 17 of those, I was a supervisor. I managed and controlled people, the critical work that we did. I have thousands of my signatures on papers of certification for every ship that I worked on in the United States Navy. I performed personal performance on each of my mechanics. I not only served my team, but I was in contact with several supervisors from several trades through several of their supervisors that on a daily basis, ladies and gentlemen, if I didn't touch 100 people, I would have to go back and count them again. I have the knowledge and ability to spread my knowledge and where I'd like to see us go as a community. The school belongs to the school board, and the school board belongs to the people, and I am a representative of your voice. Don't look at me as a politician, that I am not. I'd like to take your voice into the school district. I would like to repair the damage that's been done for history. And ladies and gentlemen, I didn't know about the conditions of your school district until after I went and put my name on the ballot. I volunteered out of my heart because I think that I can make some additional, positive, reliable product, and that's our children. When we allow them to graduate after 12 years in our school district, we should be able to say to ourselves, there goes our next government, and be able to say they're going to be able to get a job at a decent rate, at a decent pay scale, and come up with their career. That's what I'm here to make sure that they have the ability to do. I yield my time.
Thank you. Jeff Albertson. Rickie Day was the first one. I should have introduced him. Jeff Albertson is next. He is current chair, correct, of the school board.
Yeah.
Your time
Thanks,
begins.
Gina. Thanks, Gina. Yeah, so I'm Jeff Albertson. I currently serve on the North Beach School Board. I represent District 1 on the board of directors. That's a district that starts all the way up at the boundary of the Quinault Indian Nation and continues on down here into Ocean Shores. So it's a big geographic area. By my estimate, about 1/3 of the students in our district live in the area that I represent. On the North Beach School Board, though, we elect directors district-wide, so everybody in the North Beach School District will have an opportunity to vote in the races that these candidates you're hearing from tonight are participating in. I was appointed to the school board in September of last year to fill a vacancy. Dr. Robert Schneider had to leave the board with about 1 year remaining on his term, and so I'm here tonight asking for your vote for a 4-year term on the board. In January of this year, my fellow board members elected me president of the school board. So if you've been out to one of our meetings recently, you have seen me chairing those meetings. There's a lot more work that goes into it beyond just chairing the meetings, I assure you, preparing the agenda, and really trying to understand what's going on in the district, and in particular, because of where we are as the North Beach School District, where can we improve? I've been coming, I grew up over in the Seattle suburbs, spent most of my adult, sort of working career living in Seattle. I have always had ties to the North Beach, though. I started coming out to this area in the mid-1970s with my family to spend part of each summer. And so I have memories of like buying a pie at the, am I too close to the mic?
Too loud.
Too loud, I'll quiet down. Buying a fresh pie and comic books at Johnson's Mercantile with my dad. So this is a place that's very special to me, but, and it is a place that I hope is special to all of you as well. We live in a beautiful place, but we need a school district that is truly worthy of the kids that we have here and what families are trying to achieve with their children's futures. So I have a lot more to say on a whole range of topics tonight. Just sort of the biographical sketch on me, I'm a group product manager at Google. If you use driving directions and navigation and Google Maps, that has been the focus of my work for about the last 8 years. And I've had a long career in the tech industry as a product manager and business leader. So these are the kind of skills and background that I'm trying to apply here in the school district as well. I live up on Roosevelt Beach, south of Pacific Beach, with my partner Ben, who's here tonight, and our son Camden, who is a first grader at Pacific Beach Elementary. Thank you.
So Mike, our timekeeper, Mike, here's 30, 15, and 0 seconds. And when 0 seconds, I've been threatening to cut off the mic. So if that will help, Mike, if you can grab these. Great minds think alike. I'm not ready to sing. So I want you to pronounce your name for me.
Wise decision.
Good, yes.
I'm Halvar Olstead, Scandinavian, you know, and I got old and Lena jokes for later. I consider myself the new old guy. I've been in Ocean Shore since 2018. I continue to fail retirement. I taught 3rd and 4th grade in Mount Baker schools up in Whatcom County for 30 years. And then I retired, and then I became a security officer at the Blaine refinery for 2.5 years, where I almost became a sergeant, but I followed my wife to, she became a Lutheran pastor, she's a retired music teacher, and ended up in far eastern Montana, and there's no short trips in far eastern Montana, by the way. We were there for 10 years, and they needed teachers there, so I substituted both short and long term. I did home ec, no, I take that back. It's home and family life in Montana for 6 weeks as a maternity leave, and I wasn't very good at it. And I'm currently the safety manager up at Seabrook. And so I expect to only serve 1 term. I'm 74 years old. And I think that the reason I started doing this job, or trying to get this job, so to speak, is when we moved here in 2018, there was obviously a poor perception of the North Beach schools. And I don't know if that's true or not. And so I'm going to try to match, if elected, try to match the perception with reality. And if we need to fix reality, we'll do that. I'm hoping the cameras are better than they were 50 years ago when I went to school, because one of the times I did an interview on the TV station I worked at college was, hold it just a minute, we got to powder your head because of the reflection in the cameras, but I think hopefully we're better now than it was then. So I have no agenda. I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for the position. I've been to many school board meetings. As a teacher, I have 4 kids, all of which had 3 kids, sorry, all of which have IEPs of some kind, and 7 grandchildren. Been married for 47 years, and I hope that she'll vote for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Joe Lomedico.
Hey, I'm Joe Lomedico. My wife and I have 4 kids here. We moved here about 5 years ago, so we have kids in the elementary school, up into the high school. Obviously, I've been around our district for about 4.5, 5 years. Started as a PE teacher at PB, essentially moved to Ocean Shores Elementary, and all the same while I've also been coaching at the high school, middle school, high school. So I've seen firsthand and experienced the issues that the last 5 or 6 years has really brought upon our district. It's no shortage of tragic, and you know, we're in a rebuilding phase, and we need people, I believe, in this school board that are going to allow us to really help our new superintendent right this ship and get us in the right track, because right now it's unfortunate. I mean, I wear these hoodies with pride. I love North Beach, like I've been here my whole life, but these kids need help right now. They need help badly, and we're not helping them like we need to, and we need people in there that are going to force the hand. We need people that are going to tell this staff, these admin, and say, look, enough's enough. Our kids are failing our English. Our kids are failing math. Our athletics department is in shambles for the most part. Like, there is a full rebuild in this district, and the great part is they found our next superintendent who, I say, I'm cautiously optimistic. He's done so well so far for the little time he's been here. He's pointing us in the right direction, but we're not even headed that way yet. We still have a lot of work to do, and it's a full-time, it's going to be a big job. It's going to be a big job. And I mean, we see what just happened with the parade. I mean, thank God for parents and alumni parents who took a step forward to take care of these things when our current staff aren't doing that, and we need to fix that. So, you know, I do love this district. Like I said, I have 4 kids. You know, my wife and I have the gym in town. We also have the jiu-jitsu school. So we work around kids a lot. We provide a lot of things for kids. In fact, in 2 weeks, our nonprofit, Success Through Sports, is going to be active to help all of our kids in North Beach that can't afford to join a sport to be able to pay for that, so they can all be involved in sports, whether it's through cleats, sign-up fees, or whatever. So that should be active in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, please vote for me.
Thank you. So the very first question that we've asked all candidates, and you may or may not have an opinion on it, but I hope that you do. Jeff, you're on this hot seat. What do you think about saving our library? We have a campaign that suggests that our library needs to be saved and taken out of the general fund, and they're worried about it. And I want to know your opinion about how that library affects our school students.
The Ocean Shores City Library, that is? Okay, yeah, happy to take that question. You know, as my son enrolled in the North Beach schools 2 years ago, by the way, how long do I have?
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, thank you, okay. As my son enrolled in North Beach schools for pre-kindergarten a couple years ago, then I got involved as a board member and got to know some of the other buildings in the district. It's really become apparent to me that in our 3 school buildings, there's vast disparities in sort of the quality of the library facilities and services that are available. And I'm not talking about the people who staff those. I'm talking about just what we have as assets in the district. So if you look at Ocean Shores Elementary, very robust library. We have some of our board meetings in there periodically, good selection of titles available. Pacific Beach Elementary, where my son is a student, it's rather more threadbare in terms of the selection of titles that a student can go and access there. And then, much to my shock and surprise, I learned shortly after joining the board that the big room in the high school where we have our every 3rd board meeting and all of our special board meetings used to be the library, and there is no library at the North Beach Junior Senior High School. I don't know the backstory behind this decision, but I have never encountered an American high school that fails to have a library as part of its program. This is, to me, a really significant gap. A library is not just like a learning resource for very specific needs, but being able to access a librarian for help with academic subjects, other information that students want to explore beyond their coursework, helping to satisfy that sort of intellectual curiosity that students are demonstrating at this age, that's a critical resource for any school to have. I'm glad there's a great library in Ocean Shores. I don't live inside Ocean Shores, but I've visited the library here and very impressed with everything they do. And at the moment, I would say that library is filling a critical gap for us at the middle school, the junior senior high school, because we don't even have a library. And this is one of these long-term gaps. Again, I don't know how it happened, and that's maybe less important now than how we're going to fix that going forward.
Thank you. Halvar.
I'm certainly supportive of libraries. There are a number of schools that I've known about that don't have libraries, been replaced by electronic learning and access to those kinds of things. As I said, I'm the new kid in town and don't know what the history is. I don't know what steps have been taken to fill that gap, whether they have somebody that will direct, especially high school kids, to the electronic versions of things. I don't know that. But the concept of having a library in general and somebody to help with research and try to sort out the good from the bad and what's true and not true on electronic media especially, I think is important. But I don't have any good answers. I don't know if it's a funding issue. I don't know if it's a educational issue that somebody decided. My guess is this was financial, which is the other districts I know about that have done it with libraries have done it for financial reasons. I think it's a bad idea, but we'll find out.
Thank you. Joe.
Yeah, to piggyback a little bit on what Jeff said, you know, as far as having a city library, I think every city, every town needs a library. That's important. You know, my focus on, you know, running for school board is the high school library and the fact that we don't have one. And this is how bad it, you know, our reading scores are insanely bad. Our kids right now don't know how to write, but you can't learn how to write if you don't read. We have, right now, for example, one of my children had to do an essay last year on a book report. So where's your book at? Oh, we don't have a book, we have an audio book. So you don't even have to read a book in our high school to do an essay. How can you possibly look at the format of writing skills if you don't have to read a book? How can you possibly know? Our oldest son was getting straight A's in an English class. We thought, great, let's send you to Running Start. You're doing great. English is great. You're doing great. He goes to Running Start and he flunked out. We had to bring him back. All of a sudden we started reading the things he was writing and it made us nervous. Like, how are you getting an A with what you're getting? This is my child. I love my child, but he's a senior getting ready for college, and I'm sorry, like, he's not ready. And we're failing these kids, and it's just simple. They have to be able to have books in front of them. You have to. I didn't want to go hang out in a library in high school, but thank God I did. Thank God, as an adult now, and we're failing these kids. And if it's a financial issue, then we can put a hold on other things. We can do other things. We didn't need that last levy to pass where we needed a theater and all this stuff. We needed a library. And that's what we need to work on, is getting books in front of these kids, not audio books or any of this other stuff that we're forcing down these kids' throats. Get them books.
Thank you. Rickie?
I was surprised when I found out the high school didn't have a library. I just became a member of the city library. So it's good that we have books in the community that the kids can go to get their education, but I'm finding out we don't even have homework. Why would they need a library? So one of my things that I was looking at, talking to everybody about when I'm seated, that we need to have a library in the high school, because how can children go and learn their studies if they can't go to the library and pick out an encyclopedia, or go to the Dewey Decimal System and pick out a book to read? We got to get back to the basics. We've missed that. I think that we all sitting at this table have the general scope that if we are without a library, how can we educate our children to be good students? How can we have good students graduate from high school and go out into our society and be successful when they're taking all of this baggage that we as adults haven't given them to be able to unpack? So to be able to be efficient with our children, we have to have the tools to do that. This community has a financial problem, so does our country, our state. Where are we going to come up with the money? I'm not a millionaire. I'm sure there's people in the audience that may have more money than I do that could lend a little bit here and there if that's what their heart desired. But we have a bigger problem than that, ladies and gentlemen. You and I sitting at this table, out in the audience, we can't come to a consensus. There's 3 things I put on a sign when I put it up for notoriety of my name: integrity, respect, and consensus. I stand with integrity sitting at this table, because everything I say comes out of my mouth and I'll stand behind every word I tell you. Respect for every individual's opinion, because without your opinion and without your ability to educate me so that I can be a vital voice for you, I won't be able to represent you at that table. I won't be able to tell the superintendent what he needs to know was coming from the community. And by the way, when I started this job, I went out on my feet and I started to talk to people in the community on my own, with no reservations from nobody pointing me in that direction. And I was asking these people the same questions your superintendent asked on the second meeting I went to with him. I've already been doing the things that your superintendent wants to get out and do. Find out what you, the audience, the people of our community, want from our learning establishment, North Beach High School.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to announce that every candidate that we have interviewed, everyone supported the library, with hands down. There is not a concern from me that the library isn't needed, used, or useful. And as you've heard tonight, The high school or junior high does not have a library on staff, on their estate. And actually, the Ocean Shores Library has an employee that brings books to the school and has a program there. And so this is a way of bringing light to it, and I'm grateful that we were able to talk about it. I also have been remiss because we are doing this live broadcast. It will be on Channel 68, Coast Communications, and I did not say that neither did the TV or any of the people that I thanked, none of us are endorsing a candidate. We don't endorse, and we are not paying for campaigns for individuals or parties. Darn, you're out of luck. It's important for me to make that comment because we wanted to have a forum where they could talk, where you could connect a face and a name and listen to their answers. And thank you all for agreeing on the library. It made my job a whole lot easier. So the next thing that I want to bring up, and Halvar, you're next. Are you or will you seek a job with the school district? And do you know what that means to your board position if you do?
Well, I can't say exactly understand the question. Certainly, I do not want a job with the school district. I did that for plenty a long time. I don't think you can have a job with the school district and be on the board. I don't know the answer to that question, but certainly I'm employed full-time now. I don't need another job other than being on the board.
Thank you. Joe?
Sure, I'll take that. As somebody that on this panel that actually worked for the school for a few years, I do understand you cannot be on the board and work for the school district. I have given up. Anybody that knows me, my passion is coaching. My first and foremost passion is being on any of those fields with our kids and teaching them how to be future adults through sports. This is my passion, it always has been. But I also understand that right now we have to fix the district. So I'm putting my coaching on hold. I'm putting my love of what I do through the school district on hold because we have to fix this school. At some point in the future, I will say this, if ever down the road I was able to become the athletic director of this school or any other school district, that's always been my, as a high school coach, that's always your mount, right? Is instead of coaching one sport, overseeing and building the entire athletic program. North Beach doesn't have a full-time AD, so that's not in the scope of the future anytime soon right now, and we have no money for one, so I don't have to worry about that right now. If and when that ever happened, obviously I'd have to have a talk with, we'll see where we are in the district, see what opportunities there are, and obviously help find a replacement for me because you can't do both. I will say that if that ever happened, I would not just step down from the district, or from the school board. I would not step down until we found somebody qualified to fill that vacancy that I trusted. Obviously, it would have to be voted in by the rest of the board, but I would not ever step down and just say, well, figure it out. I would have 1 to 2 candidates that could step into that job and get voted in to finish what I started.
Thank you. Rickie?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I've been elevated. I've gotten a promotion.
I've been retired for 6 years. I debriefed from my last career. And the reason I'm sitting here in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, is because I want to take your voice with me. I want us to control our government because they're out of hand. We are the owners of the United States government. Our Constitution says so. We have a responsibility to our government. I've let that go for a long time. And here recently, I looked at myself and I says, stop talking about it, go out and voice your opinion and see who else has that. Because ladies and gentlemen, I've been halfway around the world. I've talked to a lot of people from a lot of diversities, and we all have one thing in common: peace. We want the best for our children. We want to go home at night and be safe. We want to wake up in the morning and go to the career that we've chosen with the education we received. I'm sitting here, ladies and gentlemen, with all the stuff I've told you. I'm a product of a public school. I trust public schools. My children came from public schools. I don't like the deception. I don't like the double standard. I don't like the backstabbing, the nepotism that's in all of our resources of industry and jobs. How come we can't keep that away from what we as individuals do for the corporations that we work for? So, and when I'm stated for 4 years, I will give you the hours that you need of me for that position. And while I'm sitting here, I've done some research, and those people that are on the board that do this, that have a job, this is extra stuff for them. Taking care of their families, taking care of their job that they have. I understand that. And with the job that I had and the people that I had to do business with, I had to keep all of their stuff in line too, because they might get lost what my responsibilities were. I understand my responsibilities to you, to the school board, to the superintendent, to the members that instruct the children. I'm just trying to help them be able to succeed and raise the percentage levels of everybody in these classes. Because our children, your children, and each student that our instructors teach deserve that from us.
Thank you. So we've gone down, so
I'm next.
you're next. You begin, and I want to, it's easy for me to do this, but the big question that I kept getting is, do the candidates recognize the hierarchy of their position to the superintendent and how that affects their job as a school board candidate or a school board member, as far as financial, or as far as policy, as far as what takes place in for their job? Can you explain that and to your understanding? And we'll go down the list, because I think everybody has a different take on what that job is, that job entails.
Okay, and do you want me to answer the previous question too?
Well, all 50 of them.
Yeah, I think, I have several jobs already. I'm a father, I'm a spouse, I work at Google, as I said at the outset. I'm first baseman on a baseball team, and I'm president of a school board. So I've got my hands full. I'm not looking for employment with the North Beach School District. And if I were, we do have a policy against that. Board directors cannot be employed in the school district. In fact, there is a third school board race underway, and one of the contestants in that race actually was hired as an elementary school teacher at Pacific Beach Elementary after she filed, and so she has made it clear that is her priority, teaching, and she's going to be doing that work, and will decline to serve if she happens to be elected. Her name's still on the ballot. This is the District 5 race. So I'm also, I would add, not qualified to be a teacher in this district. Teaching is a highly skilled profession. People come to these roles with bachelor's and master's degrees focused on having that rare ability to connect with students in the classroom and help them learn, help them navigate difficult and complex subjects. And I don't have those skills. My career has gone in a different direction. I am here to help the school district as an organization get back on its feet and find its way and recover its financial stability, develop a strategic plan that will guide it through the years ahead, staff the key position. What we do as a board is we hire and supervise the superintendent, and the superintendent then supervises and runs the district day to day. Boards exist to govern a school district, so we set policy, we set standards. I think we set the tone to a large degree. We do that together with the superintendent, and we represent the community's point of view on where our schools should be going. So that's where we focus as a board. We are not here to run the district. We really try to and need to shy away from being involved in day-to-day decisions that occur in our school buildings or even at the district administration level. Some of the circumstances of the last 2 years, which I think are pretty broadly known to a lot of people, have made that challenging. I think we had a period of time, as I came on the board, I realized that there was sort of a significant gap in leadership and call it sort of managerial acumen, and I think there are ways that myself and some of the other board members have had to step in to fill that gap. I don't regret it, but that's not the model on which we should be operating going forward.
Thank you. Halvar, kind of the same question. What do you think your position is as if you were to be made the school board member for your district?
I'd certainly agree with the current president of the board that the board should not and really can't micromanage. They hire people that they think are doing the job, and it's for the superintendent on down. I think if the board members try to meddle with small things, that it's a bad deal. So I certainly agree with everything he said, that the board provides policy, they provide leadership, but they don't do day-to-day things. I taught for 30 years in Washington, another 10 years in Montana, and never had a superintendent come and tell me what it is that I should do, and certainly not a board member. And so I agree with everything you said.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, to piggyback, I think a lot of what Jeff said is obviously accurate. The school board does not run the day-to-day, and they shouldn't. The school board should hire a superintendent, and their job is to oversee that they're doing their job correctly and they're going in the right direction. Saying that, though, there are times when the board does get involved, right? If there's formal complaints, if there's issues that get escalated from the building level to the district level, then it goes up to the district, up to the school board level. They do have to make decisions. They have to make decisions that they have to vote on correctly. And there's, we need to make sure that the people on that board are willing to make those decisions, because by the time any of these issues get to that board level, it's the final call, right? It's a difference between somebody having a job, a kid feeling safe at school, big issues. By the time they get there, these are big issues. And we need to make sure that the people on that board are willing to make those choices and not just try to sweep them under the rug or make it easy for the district like it's happened sometimes in the past, right? They have to make that choice. And we need people on that board that are going to make the choice that have our kids' best interests, not maybe what's best for the district to make them look good. We have to make what's best for the children, what's best for our kids, what's best for the long-term outlook of our district, and not maybe always side with staff members that just, which we've seen that over the last 5 years dramatically. Anybody that knows me knows my experience of what I went through with the district for the last few years. I'm a product of having to fight that fight, and I fought it, and this is why I'm here, so other people don't have to fight it. But yes, the daily, to get back to the answer is, our job as the board is not to oversee, and we shouldn't be overseeing, right? We have a good superintendent. It's just making sure that he is running things properly, setting the groundwork for him to do his job properly, getting him the resources. But if something gets escalated, you have to be able to have the people in there that make the right call and make that call that's in the best interest of our kids and what's right. And that's a hard part that we've lost over the last few years. Making the choice of what's right, not what's easiest.
Thank you. Rickie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've briefed myself on the RCWs of the state of Washington for the school board director. I don't know everything. There's standards and policies that are in place that I'll have to brief myself on to come up to speed. My number one responsibility for you is to keep the superintendent involved and informed about what is happening in the school district, in the school performance of the instructors, what's happening with the students, and what's happening with the fiduciary responsibilities we have for the tax dollar. If we're unable to do that, then we can't perform our duty on the board for you. keeping you informed of all of these things that we do need to be present in our community, because if we need to come to you and ask for more money, you need to know why we're asking for that. This isn't an easy job, and to keep everybody happy isn't going to be a satisfying individual success for me, because I have had a lot of people on Facebook talk down to me just because of the way that I present myself to get you to talk to me. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I have filed documents with my signature that Sales sees today that I'm very proud of. And with that, I will take that also to the board, because being accountable for your dollars is what I've done all my life.
Thank you. Halvar, it's difficult for someone who has a background in going ahead and wanting to be a candidate that doesn't have the background for being a candidate for a school board. You have a different viewpoint because you were an instructor. If a parent has a problem with something that happens at the school, what's the criteria, what's the steps that they need to follow if they have a complaint?
I'd have to look at North Beach's policy in particular, but in general, they would go up the chain of command. They would talk to the teacher. If they don't get satisfaction there, they go to the administrator. If they don't get satisfaction there, they go to the superintendent. And as Joe responded to, that sometimes it ends up in the board's lap, whether it's a suspension or the teacher issue. The board has to deal with that. But there is I'm sure there's a policy in place to deal with that in the North Beach schools, as there is in every school that I've been at. And the people involved need to follow that policy. I just had a discussion with my boss today at Seabrook about one of the people who worked for me, and they had gone around us to higher ups, and they're going to be reminded that, no, this is how it works. And I think that's, if a person came to me with a problem about their child, I'd say, go down and talk to the teacher, talk to the principal, and go up the food chain.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, that pretty much is the general direction. You do start with the teacher. If the issue is not resolved, you go up to the principal. If that is not resolved and you don't feel like it's been resolved adequate, you go up to the principal, or you up to the superintendent. And then at that point in time, if you still are not getting the answer you're looking for, or the outcome you're looking for, or it hasn't been dealt with properly to your satisfaction, then you go to the board, and that's when the board makes that final call if you get in front of them, whether it's in an executive session meeting or whatever. But that's when you get your final answer. I mean, after that, obviously there's possibly arbitration, those type of things for certain type of things. But yeah, you would start with the teacher, building, district, school board.
Thank you. Rickie?
Yes, ma'am. There's processes and procedures in everything we do. So I'll have to study the process and the procedure for how to address concerns that parents bring to me. I'm a person, I'm an individual, and you can talk to me. But for me to be able to adequately address your concern, I will seek out the right answer, and I've done this recently, and I'll give you the information that you need to make the right choice. I won't tell you how to do that.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, as Halvar and Joe said, there's a chain of command within a school district, as there is within most organizations, and issues that arise, for students, parents, guardians in the district, or between staff members. The best model to use in a healthy school organization is to have those issues discussed and hashed out and resolved at the lowest level possible within the district, and then to escalate up as necessary. And that's a model that, I think at times we have probably gotten away from in the North Beach School District in recent years. But it's one that, I'm working very hard with Dr. Jim Shank, our new superintendent, to reestablish and practice consistently across the district. here's the one thing that as a board member, I'm appointed at this point, but it would be true whether appointed or elected to the office, is as a public official, you also feel an accountability to your constituents and to the public about what's happening in the schools. And to me, that means, there may be a parent who gets into a situation, let's say, they feel their student is being bullied or harassed by another student in school, and they try to resolve it with the teacher, maybe they talk to the principal, and it doesn't really get resolved to their satisfaction, but they're the kind of person who they're not going to push it to the next level and the next level beyond, and try to take it all the way to the board for resolution. I think it's very important for us as board members to have our ears open, to have our trap lines out, to be engaging with people, hearing from them directly about the experiences that their students are having with the school district, so that we can be sensitive to issues like that. If you take that issue, harassment, intimidation, bullying of students in schools, it is one of the primary reasons why students disengage from school, and sometimes to the extent of actually dropping out when you get to the high school level. And so it's a critical issue for us to be able to address. But if we don't necessarily know that it's happening, and I've heard stories, from parents in this district of ways in which their students have experienced harassment or bullying over the last, say, five years. If you don't systematically address issues like that, it really undermines everything you're trying to do as an educational institution. So yes, the chain of command is critically important, but as leaders in the district, as board directors, we do have a responsibility to sort of catch the larger issues that cut across a lot of people that are affecting the way our district performs.
Thank you. Thanks. Joe, you're next.
Yep.
So can you tell me, based on everything that we just talked about, the question comes to mind, there was a lot of complaints about Facebook being the first step when there's been a complaint about the school, whether it's sports, whether it's academics, that's been a critical part. Can you tell me how you feel should that be the case? Should Facebook be the case
No,
to
but
deal with it?
No, and I don't always necessarily think it is. I think by the time it gets to social media, and listen, obviously we know what our group social media is in Ocean Shores. It gets pretty crazy sometimes. But I think a lot of people, especially over the last few years, they don't feel like they've been heard by the district. So if you're not going to be heard by the district, well, guess what? You're going to be heard by your community. Because if the district will not go out and fix the things that need to be fixed after complaint, after complaint, after complaint, then the community is going to come together and say, nope, now we're going to take care of it. We took care of it with the homecoming parade that was not going to be used. We're taking care of it with other issues. I'll be honest, most people know my son is a coach. He just quit the football team. Quit because he's been tormented the last couple of years by this head coach. He's been targeted, he's been tormented. We've had numerous meetings with our principal. Numerous. Nothing happened to the point where he felt he had to quit his senior year because he was done. Is that fair to him? No. So yes, by the time, if nobody else is going to hear me, guess what? We got the community involved. And I informed everybody, hey, sorry, Wyland's no longer on the football team. He's done being targeted. So do I feel that social media should be the first and foremost place to go to? Absolutely not. Go through your chain of command. Go through everybody. Get your concerns heard. And hopefully they're dealt with properly. But if not, just like before social media, right? The community would come together and talk. They would solve these problems themselves. With technology now, people use social media. We have these chat groups, these community chat groups to bring people together to be able to talk. If they're not going to do it on their own, then the community gets involved, and that's what social media has done. Do I wish that we didn't need it? Oh, absolutely. But we do. And unfortunately, it's because right now this school district is still not fixing the problems and holding themselves accountable. They're not. I think Jeff is doing a great job as the board president. He's very trustworthy. But I will say right now, at this current board right now, firsthand experience, they are afraid sometimes to make that hard choice with current staff members on there to hold them fully accountable. Is it because they're afraid, they're nervous of, future contracts with the teachers? I don't care. If a kid comes to a staff member and says, I'm being targeted by an employee, you do the research, you bring people in the office, and you hold people accountable. And that is not still happening today. And so yes, people turn to social media sometimes to vent, and they should.
Okay. Rickie?
Madam Chair, can I clarify the question? Did you ask if Facebook is a viable avenue for communication?
Correct.
No.
Thank you.
I'm-
Jeff? Go.
Please say.
If you would like me to expound on that, I will, but the answer to my question is I don't think social media is viable for any communication, because communication is done face-to-face. You write it down, you pass it to the next person, they read it, they don't understand it, they talk to me face-to-face. I'm sorry for turning my head. They talk to me face-to-face because in written language, ladies and gentlemen, you don't get everything you need to know. That's how come you put down the bullet points, the important stuff that you want people to understand, and then you wait for them to call you. That's how come I gave you my address on social media and my phone number, so you can all call me if you don't like what I say on social media, because that's pretty much what I get. Nobody likes what they hear, but nobody wants to talk about the facts.
Thank you.
So I wholeheartedly agree with Rickie that Facebook and other social media can be a really imperfect way for people to try to come together or communicate or reach agreement. It's certainly not a good place for people to try to resolve their differences. In fact, if you want to deepen your divide with someone you disagree with, go and have your argument on social media, and you will see that happen immediately. I think that's well established. Having said that, I'm a strong believer in free speech rights. I had a formative experience when I was young of traveling not once but twice to the Soviet Union while it was still the Soviet Union, and talking to people who had lived for decades under that system and experiencing what that kind of world is like. It is critical that citizens be able to redress their grievances with their government, in particular, in whatever peaceful means they choose to exercise. That might be through social media, that might be through coming to our board meeting and participating in audience comments. If you've come to our board meetings or tuned in on Zoom, you will see that sometimes those comments are pretty trenchant, they're pretty critical. That is appropriate. I've even had some criticism for not gaveling down people, for particular reasons. But it's very clear to me, and it's very clear to me when you look at the law that applies to, the president of a school board, what are the limited set of circumstances in which I could actually do that, where I could actually say, no, you may be able to say that outside this room, but you can't say it in this room here tonight. So I'm a staunch defender of people being able to address their criticisms, but I think if people feel the need to turn to Facebook to start to resolve the issue that they have with the school district, that is also an indicator of a system that is not working well to address their concerns as it should be. We talked about the chain of command, we talked about accountability, we talked about, how, issues get escalated up to the board eventually if they're not resolved. But people need to be able to trust that that system of accountability is going to work for them, or otherwise they are going to turn to, Ocean Shores Chat or whatever group they participate in to air their grievances instead. And that happens, but it's not an indicator that things are working well.
Thank you. Halvar?
Well, I may well be the lone stranger here, is that I don't do Facebook because I'm afraid nobody will be my friend.
I'll be your friend.
So I've never been on Facebook. I'd rather talk to people face to face or on the phone if worse comes to worse. I do email, but I don't text very well because I have to go instead of so, I'm not a big fan of social media. I don't use it, and so I'll probably be standing behind the door.
Thank you. And lastly, well, not lastly, we've got another hour to go. We have, Rickie, you're next. How many times did you attend a board meeting before you decided to become a candidate?
None. Because I had left the education system to those who are responsible for that. Their AOR, area of responsibility. But when I found out what was happening, I went to Long Beach, ladies and gentlemen, to a forum, Crisis of Education, Washington State. I wasn't going to go, but I went. And what I found there was a pornography that's being showed in schools was against the oath I took to protect my country of tyranny and oppression. And for what's happening in our society today, I really don't believe those are the basic instructions that should be coming from an educational development program for young people. What we need to do is educate our children how to make the right decisions in society by the time they graduate from high school at 18. They're still not legally responsible for their actions unless they commit a crime within the adult arena, that they have the knowledge and the logic to understand right from wrong. If we don't teach that to our children, then we are responsible for the conditions that they live in on the street, homeless, with guns in their pocket. I was raised in rural America, ladies and gentlemen. I learned how to shoot a gun when I was real young. I learned how to drive a tractor before I ever had a license to drive. I had responsibilities, and my parents gave that to me with a big stick, and I had to go out and get my own sometimes. And if it wasn't big enough, they went and got theirs. So they instructed me on how to understand what needs to be done and what needs to be thought about being done. Because if you do the wrong thing, it could kill you. I don't want that to happen to anybody. I stand up and I stand in front of those people, and I give them the knowledge and the ability that they have to make the right decision when they're looking at compliance to procedures, because when I sign my name, those people that worked for me, those people that I communicated with, knew that when they seen my signature, we'd did everything we could, everything we had to do that job right. Even if it took a little bit more time, even if we had to talk to a little bit more people to get them to understand that their thought wasn't right, and the right thing was sitting right in front of them, and to come to a consensus for the ability to understand that, I stood up with my integrity, and we gave them the knowledge and the facts that they needed to make the decision for us to go ahead and produce that product.
Thank you.
So I had the same question. I had attended one meeting of the North Beach School Board prior to my appointment last September, and that was a meeting that took place back at the start of the process for the levy and bond measures that were on the ballot in February of '22. And I came to a meeting, and I spoke briefly in audience comments to urge the board to put both of those measures on the ballot. I was a new parent in the district. The superintendent at the time, who, well, let's just say I didn't know him very well at the time, had urged me to get involved in the effort to campaign for the levy and bond, and I did. I was a little, I will admit at the time, fairly taken aback at the scale of particularly the capital bond issue that was being sought from a community of this size and these resources. But I'm a supporter of schools. My son was enrolled in public school, and I wanted to help out. I have previous life experience with school boards. My late mom was elected to the school board in Bellevue back in 1981 when I was all of 8 years old. And I had the experience of going out, and she was campaigning, going out in our own neighborhood. We lived in a neighborhood with about 25 houses, and taking leaflets door to all our neighbors. They were going to vote for her anyway, but it was it's like my first foray into politics. And so she was on the board for 8 years, including as president of the board. It's a very different setting. Bellevue is a district at that time, of well over 10,000 students. It's dozens of school buildings, huge budget, and being a board director there versus in a district of 650 some students as we have here in the North Beach is a different kind of job. But I got a taste of it, and I was in, we had one phone line in the home, as everyone did. It was a landline back in the 80s, and I would take these calls from people that were trying to reach my mom to talk about, why the bus driver was not picking their kid up on the safe side of the street and making them cross the street instead. And so I got a taste, not just through attending the meetings, but just through seeing how she went about the work of what it means to be accountable to your constituents, and just how much passion, parents and teachers and staff and the students themselves have for what's going on in their education. And as a board director, all that passion gets channeled at you.
Thank you. Halvar?
I've been to many, many, many board meetings in the Mount Baker schools, especially when I was single and had nothing else to do. I was the union president and would sit on those meetings. The thing that was different in those days, there might have been 3 or 4 people in the audience, whereas with the board meetings that I've been in, I think 3 that I've been in at North Beach, there's been a couple dozen people, which is kind of amazing to me. I was at a couple of board meetings in Montana. I've been a couple in Ferndale School District where my wife taught. Kind of an aside note, I went to the city council meeting in the first place we had in Opheim, in Montana, and then I got appointed. And so I'm a little leery of going to meetings after that. But I did get elected later. I had 12 votes or something. It was a very small town. And then my claim to fame is the first board meeting I went to in North Beach. I was ruled out of order because I talked at the wrong time. But
Sorry, Halvar.
that's all right. You're the one with the gavel. So
We have accountability here.
yeah. So I've been at lots of board meetings in lots of places, and I guess that's it.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah. So before I started running, I had been to a few once I started working for the district, especially through my dispute with Andy Kelly and everything. That's when I started coming to them and seeing what they were about. Obviously, trying to defend my situation and other employees' situations who Andy was targeting at the time. Obviously, since running for school board, I think I've been to I've been to every single one, whether it was on Zoom or in person, just because obviously with everything going on, we have to know what's happening and we have to gather information, and obviously taking a lot from open audience comments and seeing what the community's feeling. So yes, I've been to all of them since I started running, but I've been to a lot over the last couple of years.
Thank you. Okay. Jeff, you get to start this one? No? Yep. You get to start this one. So, we will ask if you have an idea about punishment and the manner in which a student talks to a staff person or the superintendent. How does that get addressed? Is that a policy? And do you feel that whether it is something that has a direct impact on the entire classroom when they're not responding in a way that the 4-letter words don't need to be a part of the classroom? How do you address that?
I do have a point of view on that. I mean, my own personal perspective and my own values really center around respect. And when I was a young person, my parents taught me coming up to be respectful, especially towards teachers. and coaches and people, sort of adults that I was encountering in my life in the world, and that is something you do not just because there's a rule that you're following when you do that, but because that's how you treat other human beings. I do think that students demonstrating that kind of respect consistently contributes to a more orderly learning environment. It contributes to a sense of safety, for students, staff, and everyone in the building. And I think that kind of standard needs to be consistently upheld. There does need to be accountability. When a teacher, when a coach, when an administrator is spoken to in that way, they do need to follow up with that student. There does need to be a consequence that's appropriate and proportional to what happened. This is one of those areas, and I spoke about sort of harassment, intimidation, and bullying earlier, where you really need a sort of whole of the district approach to how you address this systematically, because it is, it's the responsibility of that student to do better, and it's the responsibility of the staff member to address it. But you kind of need peer leadership as well. You need students who will stand up to kids who would, tell an administrator to F off or something, and be able to say, like, look, I don't care for that. Like, that's not who we are as a school. You need what is known as bystander intervention training in a lot of these circumstances. When kids are being disrespectful to one another, most often there is not a teacher or administrator directly observing what's happening and able to sort of step in and stop that. And so you need students who are actually prepared and ready to intervene in those situations appropriately, and either redirect what's happening or go get adult assistance to intervene there. So it's a hard problem, and you kind of want to say, yeah, kids sometimes will just be kids, they don't behave well, but you have to keep after it, because if you lose sight of this issue, the whole environment within the building starts to erode over time.
Thank you. Halvar.
Well, one would hope that doesn't happen, but it certainly does. You have to look at what the law says, what the district policy says, and approach those issues from those things. I know that, I've been retired for 20 years from full-time teaching, and things are different now than they were. Teachers are more reluctant to do things like the other Jeff was just talking about. It's the law, it's the policy, it's the environment, all kinds of things. One of the things that keeps me sane is that, clear back to Aristotle, they were talking about how the younger generation is often, how are we going to survive? And obviously we have over hundreds of years, and so the kids are the same as they always were, only different, which is kind of a strange thing to say, but I think it's true. Respect is a big deal. There's school environment, all kinds of things that move into that. But I think you have to look at what the law says, what the policies say, and if you can change policy, change it. But you have to apply it uniformly to everybody. You can't pick and choose who it is that you're gonna deal with. I better stop there.
Okay, thank you. Joe.
So I've had firsthand accounts and talking with students about discipline at North Beach High School. And this was scary when we first moved here and I first started coaching here. You would walk through the high school and you would see kids walking around during class, like they're just walking through the halls, cursing, leaving, coming and going. And I grabbed some of my athletes over time as I was walking through the hall. I'd be like, what are you doing out here? And this is a known thing at North Beach High School, the lack of accountability. Multiple kids have told me, Coach, I can do anything short of a suspendable offense, and nothing will happen to me. There's no detention. There hasn't been a detention at the high school. So literally, these kids know we can do whatever we want as long as we don't punch a kid or do something that's suspendable, and there's no accountability. You'll go talk to the principal. Back then it was Russell Evans. He'd talk to you, maybe give you a hug or whatever, and then you just go back on your way. There was no accountability. But at the same time, let me say this carefully. We have some amazing teachers in our district. Michelle Chamberlain, Pat, Trey. We have amazing teachers for the most part. But we do have some weak links in this district that they would rather, maybe because they're not qualified, because they don't have a teaching degree, whatever, that they don't know how to properly teach. They don't know how to be a teacher. They want to be the student's friend. It's not their job to be friends. They don't get to hang out and talk the cool way and be leisurely and talk by their first name. Like, they're there to teach. And you can't show kids accountability and discipline if you don't know what you're doing. And we don't have ground rules for these kids. Hey, if you curse, you're going to detention. I remember when I was a kid, that's what happened. Okay? Now, as a coach, we did things different. You know, all of my athletes, their parents know. Hey, if your kid's at home acting stupid, doing what they're not supposed to do, come tell me. We do it with jiu-jitsu. Come tell me. There's many a times where a kid was cursing, doing what he wasn't supposed to, the school didn't do anything, and I would have the parent on the sideline and the athlete running wind sprints apologizing to their parent at every run. Because that's accountability. And the kids might think they hate it, but they really don't. Kids want to be held accountable. But as a district, we need to hold them accountable, and we need to put things in place so there is accountability. Because right now, there's just not. And that's why these kids feel that they can curse, do whatever they want, because there's no real repercussions. Because the parents or the teachers and the admin just want to be their friends. Hey, let's just talk it out. Let's just hug it out. That doesn't work. There has to be accountability, because when they get into jobs, in real jobs, if you act that way, guess what? You get fired. There is real accountability. So that's what we need to teach at this level.
Thank you. All right, so we have Rickie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Discipline starts at the home. So does respect. So does honor. So when you're 6 or 7 years old and you go to school, you should already have respect for your elders, respect for those who are instructing you, your teachers. And if you manage to make a mistake, they have the authority to correct you. I can probably tell you about 3 or 4 times, ladies and gentlemen, that my mom knew what happened to me before I got home from school, and she worked every day. How did she know when she seen me when she got home from school, or when I got home from school, that I'd been in trouble? I didn't tell her. There was communication between the faculty, between parents. So if we fail to give the appropriate communication back to the parents, we in the school district aren't doing our job for you. So to hold a child responsible should be talked to amongst the parents, talked to amongst the child, and let them know that to be respected, you have to give respect. And the only way you can do that is out of respectful communication. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to understand what my opinion is, but we need to be able to walk away without hitting each other and saying, hey, let's go back to our classroom, find out, oh, let's go to the library and pick this stuff up. There's always a reciprocal answer to any question that's asked. Is it right or is it wrong? If you've been raised with discipline and respect for those who are giving that instruction out, you can walk out those doors very happy with yourself because you probably affected somebody else.
Thank you. Halvar, do you believe the school board controls the curriculum? And please explain your envision board position plays with the curriculum.
Well, the board only controls curriculum in that they have to approve the expenditures and so forth. I wouldn't think the school board should be directly involved in deciding, what's what reading book is best for second graders, because most people don't have that kind of training or experience to know that. A lot of school boards, I think, have overstepped their bounds in controlling curriculum for whatever political reasons. But in general, they make the policies, they have procedures, they approve the expenditures. So certainly if the teachers, for instance, recommended XYZ books that cost $10,000 and they said, no, we're not going to buy them, that certainly is some kind of control. But I'm pretty adamant that most board members do not have the training experience to tell people with bachelor's and master's degrees and 20 years of experience how to teach. Having said that, yes, there are bad teachers, and there's ways to remediate those people. There's ways to, for lack of a better word, fire them. Schools in general have not followed their own procedures to do that, and the notion that you can't fire teachers is wrong. It's just that you have to go through the right process. But I think there's things in place that have trained people to decide on curriculum and what's best for kids, and the board, for the most part, should stay out of it.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, no, it is not the school board's job to dictate curriculum. It is the state of Washington and the superintendent and teachers to do that. Now, saying that, if there are issues, the school board's job is to step in. If parents have concerns and they go to the board needs to be able to step in and hear what the community's saying. They do have a say-so, obviously, when there's purchases, whether it's iReady programs, books, large expenditures, to gather the information on why it's needed, what benefit, has it been successful in other districts, instead of writing a blank check like we sometimes have in the past of, hey, we're going to switch to this. Well, why? Nobody asks why. Nobody asks, is it in the best interest? They hear a salesman sell it to the previous superintendent. The superintendent says, write him a check, because he's really good at spending our money. Write him a check. And then that process wouldn't work. That program wouldn't work. And then we just wasted tens of thousands of dollars of something that didn't work instead of doing our research. So it is the board's job to make sure that the superintendent did their research. The district did their research before we fork out a lot of money for a program that we hope works. So that is where the board's responsibility is for education, is making sure that the programs the district is installing actually work, and that they did their due research and the due process to make sure.
Thank you. Rickie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. From the research that I've done, the board is responsible to the superintendent, and the curriculum is a vital part of his job. So if there's a discrepancy in the curriculum, we as a board member have the authority to help the policy and the people understand the standards that are within that requirement. So there's a lot of studying that I'll do before I can make any decisions on that topic.
Thank you. Jeff?
So the state of Washington, the legislature, the governor, the superintendent of public education, they establish the learning objectives and the standards that apply to every public school district in the state. You can think of this as like, this is the range of topics that students must achieve, knowledge of or mastery in by a particular grade level. And then school districts like ours go out and we establish curriculum to implement progress towards those objectives. And that includes, as Joe mentioned, oftentimes going out and purchasing, sort of published coursework that is available that teachers then use in the classroom to guide their students through that subject. That is a very important part of the work. It is selecting that curriculum is critical, doing that in a way that is evidence-based is very critical. You want to have clear and convincing evidence that that curriculum, when used in other school districts, has helped students progress towards their learning objectives in a meaningful way. And you also want those decisions about which specific course materials to use in the classroom to really be driven by professionals in the education field, your superintendent, your building level leaders, your head teachers, the folks who have the deepest knowledge of how students learn and how they progress. One of the things I had a hand in my year or so on the board was recruiting Rhonda Hamm out of her happy retirement to come in and serve the district as its interim superintendent until Dr. Shank could start with us in June. And Rhonda, many of you may know her, experienced educator, administrator in this district, went out, talked to educators in the buildings, and quickly realized we had a disconnect where students in one building, say Pacific Beach Elementary, were learning from one published standardized curriculum in a particular subject, and over in Olstead Shores Elementary they were working from another textbook and another approach. And then those students meet in middle school, and if you're the math teacher and you've suddenly got a classroom full of students who have been literally learning math according to different methodologies, you have a problem on your hands. So Rhonda went out. She said, I'm going to fix this while I'm here. I'm only here for a short time, but I'm going to go out and fix this. And she was able to establish standardization of curriculum in some key areas. And we have more of that work to do, but we have, with Dr. Shank, I think, an experienced superintendent to help lead us through the process of improving how we deliver our educational program.
Thank you. Joe, you're up.
All right.
What role does the board involvement with students' low scores, and what do you believe the board does to bring those scores up?
First and foremost, accountability. What we haven't had is accountability. For too long and too many years under and I'll say this, the previous regime, our students it wasn't about getting our kids at grade level. They were a money symbol. It was kids equaled money with Andy Kelly. That's all. It was. That's what mattered. How much money could he have in the district for him to spend on God knows what, as we're finding out, right? But as a board, our job is to make sure that the superintendent is doing his job and raising these scores. Our job is accountability. Our job is making sure that they are doing their job and we're seeing the scores rise. And if they're not, asking the hard questions. Why? Why are they not? What can we do different? Is there something you need? What don't you have? That is our job as a board, is to hold people accountable to make sure that they're doing their job.
Thank you. Rickie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a responsibility for us to give our students the knowledge that they have. Essential at graduation. Any of us that stand in that way are messing up the entire program. So as a person sitting on the committee, listening to you, understanding the superintendent's vision for how we're going to recover our finances and raise the standards of our students. In my research to sit here in front of you tonight, I found that across the state of Washington, all of our schools are performing below standard. All of them. Even the ones that are financially higher in some districts than other districts, after you take in the accountability for people, for situations, they kind of balance out. So even the schools that are having a higher percentage rate on paper, in real life, their scores aren't that high. It's just a facade. So for us to be accountable to our students, we have to hold our teachers to a professional performance level so that we, as a board, can give them the instructional data that they need to be a success for each of their students. What I've seen in this school district, ladies and gentlemen, and in your community is 100% of people that want this school to succeed. All the deficiencies that you guys have been through, all of the anomalies of people that you converse with on a daily basis, you all want the same thing. A consensus of an ability is what we're here to give you. But we can't do that without your involvement with us. Because for us to be a success, it comes from the house. It comes from the house of the children that live in there that we're educating. And if we can't educate our kids, I'm going to tell you this again. It's my responsibility that they're out there on the street with no job. They're out there on the street with no home. Because my educational system failed them and didn't give them the standard ethic responsibility in their heart that they can do anything they put their heart to. Anything they put their mind to, I've done that.
Thank you. Jeff?
Gina, sorry, could you just briefly repeat the question?
Sure. What role does the board involvement with student low scores, and how does the board act to bring the scores up?
You bet. Our scores are low. If you look across English language arts, which is kind of that nexus of reading, writing, and self-expression, if you look at mathematics, and if you look at science, we are doing very poorly relative to state standards when you measure these things by test scores. I am not one of these people that believes that testing is the be-all, end-all solution to underperforming educational systems, but they are an indicator, and they're an indicator you have to be very mindful about. We have pockets of in the district where things are going really well. At the high school level, we have students performing very well in science relative to their peers around the state. And you can look around and you can find that, but what we don't have is consistently high performance across all grade levels and all buildings and all subjects in our district. That is an extremely hard problem to solve. It is. I mentioned earlier the desire to have a strategic plan for the district, because actually making traction and progress on things like, say, you want your test scores higher. Well, that means you want your students to be able to read and do math and understand science. That takes multiple years to build towards. It begins with things like we just talked about, strong curriculum. But where the rubber meets the road is the teacher in the room. Raising the skill level of our teachers through robust professional development opportunities for them. Raising the bar for the teachers that we hire in terms of the qualifications that they bring to the table. Our district has, in a number of recent years, got by with teachers who were operating on, emergency certifications, provisional certifications, working with sort of lesser credentials in the classroom. And it's not that credentials are everything, and it's not that these weren't good people, but you have to set a high bar for who you are putting in the classroom with the students if you want to achieve and see strong results at the end of the day. So that's a systemic issue. That's something you don't necessarily fix it in 1 year. It takes multiple years. You need a strategic plan to get there. But you do want to show progress towards that improvement every year as you're doing that work, because the community expects it, parents expect it, and most of all, students need it. They only get this one shot at their K through 12 education, and we have to give it to them.
Thank you. Halvar?
Systemic kind of is a good word. I think it's not just the teachers in the classroom, which obviously are important, but it's from students, from parents, community members, grandparents, across the board need to be involved in this process. If the kid doesn't have a place to...
Excuse me, 1 minute. We can hear a conversation up here. If you could be quiet, please. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
If a kid doesn't have a place to stay or doesn't have enough food or all kinds of on and on and on, they're not going to learn well. I know that the North Beach Schools has some plans underway to to bring some health resources to the schools, which I think is a great thing. You have to look at the big picture. The other thing that happens in test scores in a relatively small district like North Beach is that you're comparing this group of kids to that group of kids, and they're different. This year, they may have, 10 kids that have an IQ of 200 and do really well, and next year you don't have the same number of kids. And so one of the things that happens in the media, social media, if you actually did that, or in the print media, whatever, is that they're taking these figures and not applying them correctly, in my mind, sometimes. But we're all looking for kids that are better at what we think they need to do. But it takes the whole community. By and large, teachers are good at what they do. If they need more resources, that's the board's responsibility. But I don't think you can limit it to schools. It's, the whole spectrum of kids' health, their home life, support, all those kinds of things that need to be addressed.
Thank you. Rickie, the school-based healthcare, or SBHC, what is your understanding of what that entails? And should it consider gender reassignment or any supportive thereof?
Madam Chair, may I have you repeat the question, please?
The school-based healthcare, or SBHC, what is your understanding of what it entails, and should gender reassignment be involved in that contract?
I don't have an answer for that question. I'll have to research that and get back to you, but for the gender reassignment in schools, ladies and gentlemen, a boy and a girl, that's how I got here. So this is a very sensitive topic for me because I respect every individual's right to their choice. I defend that with the oath that I took, for the oaths that I have taken, for the job that I do for you. But to be taught in schools, to allow young people to make decisions that could rectify their life forever, I don't know as an adult if I'm qualified to give them that ability. Now, when they turn 18 years old and we've given them the instructions to be a product of society, then those choices become theirs. Their choice becomes theirs. The financial responsibility for that choice is theirs, not the taxpayer. And I don't believe the taxpayer should be involved with personal choices.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think the background to the question here is that the North Beach School District has formed a partnership with Grays Harbor County Health to operate a school-based health center at North Beach Junior Senior High. This is an opportunity, created by the legislature for local school districts to offer more than just a school nurse. School nurses are outstanding, but to offer a higher level of health care directly on their campuses to students and staff, and sometimes to the community, the broader community as well, although we're not undertaking that here with this partnership. This is something the board approved a bit earlier this year. It was the result of a tireless effort led by our former district nurse, Ann Allen, who really helped bring this together. The school-based health center is currently under construction. We're having to reconfigure some of our spaces. We're funding this with money from outside the district. And what the school-based health center will allow is to provide very basic primary care to our students and staff. If they have a cold, if they need to get an immunization, if they need to get a physical to participate in school sports, the school-based health center will be able to provide that for them conveniently on campus during the school day. we all know, as North Beach residents, the struggle of accessing healthcare way out here and the limited options that are available right here in our community. And for our students and staff, when they need to access healthcare, what that means is they're taking a half day or a full day off to go and access that care somewhere else. We have terribly low rates of attendance in the North Beach School District, and there are a lot of causes for that, but one of those is just what I mentioned, that these kids are, having to travel to Elma, to Olympia to get very basic needs met. With respect to gender-affirming care, that is not the type of service that the school-based health center will be providing. For students, for young people who are in need of that kind of support and assistance, it is a critical need, but it's also highly specialized care that neither our school-based health center nor, to my knowledge, any provider in Grays Harbor County is really equipped and capable to provide. So we might be a source of referral for those students to find the help that they need with the journey that they are on. We have an important duty as a school district under state law, and I would say a moral duty as well, to provide an environment in our schools that is free of harassment and bullying of people on the basis of a status like that or an identity like that. But that's where our responsibility ends.
Thank you. Halvar?
I was very pleased to hear about the school-based health center, whatever the terminology is, in the North Beach schools. I think it should be everywhere, but it isn't, because not only here, but everywhere there's a shortage of health care. I was in pre-hospital care as a volunteer firefighter for 40-some years, and see the lack of things that happen in the home, and because of financial, because of whatever kinds of things. So I'm very happy that the schools have done that. I would hope that it can expand to elementary schools as well, because it's not just the high school kids. As far as whatever the term was, gender, whatever. Reassignment. Does need to be addressed, as it does make a difference in how you deal things. There shouldn't be any bullying, there shouldn't be any discrimination. That's in the law, as I understand it. I don't have any particular feelings one way or another about the school's role in that, except to protect the kids. But I'm ecstatic, again, that there is some kind of program in place in the North Beach schools, because there isn't in many places.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah. So I am all for having health-based care center at the school. I'm a little bit, I guess, leery of how it seems to have changed from when it was first presented to us, as it was going to be open for everybody in our community. Then it kind of slowly shrank and then shrank and shrank, and so what we were presented with at first is not what it now is. As far as gender reassignment, I believe our kids and us as people, we have one life, right? Like, we should be able to, whatever we identify as, whatever our orientation, that's us. That's our right. Do I believe that our school healthcare-based center should be involved in it? Absolutely not. I don't believe some of the things that I've heard where they've hidden kids who wanted it from their parents as minors and helped them do it without their parents' knowledge in other areas. Like, I'm 100% against that. If a kid feels a certain way and who they believe they are, they have that right. And we as parents should support them. Should we as kids allow them to do this as a child? No. No. This is a major life-changing thing, and they should have to wait till they're an adult. Speak with their family, speak with their mom, their dad, speak with doctors, because that is a major change. It's a major medical procedure. As a school level, we should not be involved in it. If a kid comes to a teacher, a staff member, the school-based nurse, whoever, that should be, hey, that's great, I'm supporting you, let's call your parent, let's talk, let's figure out let's get you a building block and get you in the right direction. So when you are 18 or 19 or 20 or whatever, if you make that choice at that time, you have that support, you have the ability, you have the direction. But as a child, no, we don't let, I mean, you have to be 18 to buy cigarettes, you have to be 18, 16 to drive, like to have gender reassignment surgery or let a 12-year-old or somebody make that decision at this level. We shouldn't be involved in that. That is a family issue and should be handled with the family. And when they're of age to make that sound, life-changing choice, then they can make that choice. But as a school district, we need to be far, far away from being involved in that. That is not our job.
Thank you. Jeff, the special education teacher was also doing an independent IEP, the independent education plan for students, and it seems to be a backlog. Can you tell me how you would propose taking care of that?
Yeah, this to me, special education has been, as somebody who does not work in education as my field, this has been the steepest learning curve as a new board director, to understand the obligations that the school district has to students who have special learning needs. And as I dig into, how that is playing out in the North Beach School District, to witness some of the rather severe deficiencies in how the district has been addressing those needs. And there are people in the room who are much more deeply and intimately familiar with some of our failings there than I am. But more positively, how are we moving forward on that? As I mentioned last spring when we brought in Rhonda Ham to act as interim superintendent, it was actually kind of a package deal in that she had a colleague with deep experience in running district-wide special education programs and running them appropriately and properly and thoroughly, so that IEPs are both developed and followed, and that the required services that these individualized education plans called for are actually delivered to the students. She brought in a colleague who is still with us, helping us in that role. We have great educators and para-educators. Para-educators most often are the sort of instructional aides in the classroom who are assigned to work directly with students who have IEPs in place. We have great educators working with our special needs students in the district, but the district itself has a variety of legal and documentation and due process responsibilities that as an organization it was not consistently meeting in recent years. And between the efforts of our special ed director and Dr. Shank, I think we're making significant progress on rectifying those deficiencies, but we have a ways to go.
Thank you. Halvar.
Some of my own children had IEPs, individualized educational programs, and it's incredibly complicated from the federal level, from the state level, to meet all those standards. Very difficult, and North Beach is certainly not the only school that has a problem satisfying all those people. Having said that, I have great respect for special education teachers. I couldn't do it ever. I taught kindergarten once, and I don't want to do that again either. But it's incredibly difficult. I did happen to talk to a wife of somebody that works up at Seabrook who is a paraprofessional, and she said that they're doing the best they can with what they have. And I don't know what that means exactly, but if I was a board member, I'd try to figure that out. What do they need that they don't have, whether it's more people, whether it's less kids, whatever. But it's an incredibly difficult job. It's incredibly difficult to meet all the standards. And I'm not surprised that North Beach has issues, because it's hard not to.
Thank you. Joe?
Could you repeat the question for me?
The special education instructor is scheduled for only 2 days for the IEP plans,
Yeah.
and seems to be addressing, we need to have students evaluated for that,
Yeah.
and your stance on it.
Yeah, so obviously, IEPs are extremely important. Different kids learn in different ways. Having somebody part-time doing this a couple days a week is clearly not enough. We have a high number of IEPs for the size of our school district, and we need to address that. If we have that, we have to have the resources in place. Dealing with IEPs is not a part-time job. It's a full-time job. It's hard. It is hard to deal with IEPs, especially when every kid is so drastically different, especially with behavioral IEPs, because you don't know what you're always getting into. It's a day-by-day, minute-by-minute situation. We need more help. We need more, and paras are such an important way to help that, but we need money for that. We need financing for that, and on top of that, paras, as a former para of the school district, you need help, and you need to have a situation being where you know what your job is, and it's not hour by hour. You got to have a good system in place. You have to. We don't have that right now, and it's hard to get paras to come in when the school district has been running the way it is. We've driven so many of them out. So many paras have left because it just wasn't worth it for them. The headache was not worth it because you weren't getting the help from the building administrators. You weren't getting help from the leaders. So we can't help these kids until we can get more people in these buildings to help, because that's what you really need for IEPs. You need manpower. You need one-on-ones. And we don't have that because, frankly, people right now don't want to work for the school district. They leave in droves. And that's so sad. So we have to change that to get more people. We need help. We need financial help to be able to afford those people. And that's where it starts. There's not a certain application or a book or anything. It is one-on-one help with each kid. That is how you deal with IEPs. And we're short-staffed. We have no money right now because of our previous leadership. So that's where it starts, getting people in the buildings, but getting the leadership in those buildings that makes those people want to stay because there's a good system in place.
Thank you. Rickie?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Joe. I have a lot of personal experience with this. It's been in my life. I currently have a granddaughter now attending North Beach High School because of some situations in her life. She's on IEP, and let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm impressed because her scores have been 180 out. She's getting A's now where she used to get D's and F's. I explained to her that life isn't about playing, it's about responsibility, and that's our job as parents to give our children those data points so that they can make the right decisions in their life. So I turned her over to her IEP and to her instructors, and I'm getting feedback from both sides. So if we, the adult, put ourselves in the children's way to gain their respect, is to give respect to the child. Once they know that we're there with our arms wide open to help them with their deficient conditions in learning, we can make that happen. I just learned here recently that there are 3 different ways of learning. Kinesthetic, audio, and visual. I didn't know that. Had I known that, maybe I would have been a better instructor as a supervisor. Maybe I would have been a better instructor as an adult raising my children. Because if you don't use your hands, if you don't give them visual information, if you don't let them learn with their hands, some people don't know what you're talking about. So unless we are able to grasp those three pieces of tools and use them as we teach our children, then maybe all of our scores will rise because more of our children will understand what they need to know. And unless we give them that knowledge and tell them, hey, this is what you need to look for, these are the things that I can do for you, but it's not me. It's up to the child to be able to learn that. And unless he has that ability from his house, from his parents, from his friends, from his teachers, from the faculty and the administration, we're all in these people's lives. Every one of us are in our children's lives. You could be just walking down the street and a child bumps into you. Are you going to shove them off, or are you going to say, I'm sorry, I was in your way? Give them the respect that they're due, because I find that the more respect I give other people, the better it is for their learning knowledge.
Thank you. We are starting to run out of time, and so we're going to give 2 minutes for your closure, and I have 15 more questions for each one of you. So what I would hope is that you would stick around for the next hour afterwards, or however long, for people to come and ask and during the meet and greet and ask the questions that they had that were burning. And Halvar, why should we vote for you?
Because I'm handsome.
Well, that's the winner right there.
There you go.
Took my answer.
Yeah, same thing. We'd all say the same thing. I've got a long history in education in multiple states and multiple things. I've taught kids from kindergarten through adults. I've been a leader in, I was a volunteer firefighter, EMT, for 40-some years, and was elected or appointed as an officer in all the places I've been to. I think I have the leadership ability. I'm smart enough to stay out of the day-to-day things. Having said that, there are some people that think have an educational background is a detriment because I'm going to give the farm away to the teachers union or whatever, and that's not the case. We do what we can with what we have. So I'm reliable, I'm dependable, I'm responsible, and I'm going to serve one term. So you don't have to worry about me being reelected because I'll be way too old.
And your
Thank you.
And yeah, I might get my hair back by then, but we'll see.
Joe.
Sure. Why you should vote for me? Because I'm invested in this district. I have 4 kids. My youngest one is in 3rd grade. I will be here for a long time. I want these kids in this elementary school that by the time they get to the high school, we're better. We're where we need to be. I coach these kids. I have so many of these kids in this community at our home at any time because of our other kids. They're hanging out, playing. Like, I love the kids of our district. They need so much. They need a lot. I was told very early on, you can grab any 10 random kids. Maybe 2 of them come from a 2-parent household. Maybe 3 more might live with grandma and grandpa, and the rest might be couching it somewhere homeless. That's what we deal with. That's what our kids deal with in this community. And the school district should be that safe space for them. It's a place where they can eat, where they can learn, where they can get better. And right now, we're not giving that to them, and we need to get this district focused. So that is what we're providing for them. I will fight for it. Everybody knows I'm not quiet. Everybody knows I'm not passive. If the choice that is put before the district is not in the best interest of the kids, not it's good enough or any, no. Those days are over. If it is not in the best district of these kids, I will not vote for it. And I will point out people that do. My vote, you might not always like what I vote for, but it'll be in the best district of the kids, and I will always defend that, and you can always approach me, and I will give you my answer on why and what I think would be better. But the days of just good enough for our district is over if you vote for me.
Thank you. Rickie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for your vote so I can bring your voice back into the community of education. There's been a wall built between you, the taxpayer, and us, the people who are responsible for teaching our children how to become responsible in our society. So to do that, I don't have a problem with who I work with because I become respectful for everybody's and their opinions. I don't know anybody on the school board. I don't know anybody in the school district. I don't know the teachers. I've met some of you, and I talk with people as I walk around. I'm an outsider looking in. I can bring truth and understanding, respect, and most of all, give the teachers the ability to do their job, because without that, we have failed them. So we need to look at how we instruct our children, the material that we're giving our children to learn, how they are able to achieve accessibility for the materials and tools that they need to become educated. If we can't give them the tools, we can't teach them how to use them. We need both of them. We need the students, we need the parents, we need the faculty, we need the teachers, the instructors, because without those people, we do not have a team. And without a team, we can't succeed.
Thank you. Jeff, you're the last one.
Well, I would be honored to have your vote. As you make your decision, I invite you to look back over my record over the last 12 months as a director on this board and the things that I have pushed and helped to accomplish. Since joining the board, I, in the earliest days, acted to ensure that the district had well-qualified legal counsel to advise it on critical personnel matters so that we could avoid some of the mistakes of the recent past, and that happened. I recognized the need to bring in a skilled superintendent, experienced individual. We led a comprehensive search with community involvement in that decision, and I believe we've made a very strong hire. And I think Dr. Shank's work over the last 3-4 months is already bearing out the fruits of that decision. As I mentioned earlier, we're able to move forward on things like the school-based health center, on accessing state funding to address our critical facilities needs, particularly at Pacific Beach Elementary, although we have sort of significant seismic and tsunami vulnerabilities across all of our buildings. And I've tried to exercise good judgment. When folks came to us with a proposal that we spend $8 million in state money to build a tsunami evacuation tower over a quarter-mile away from our elementary school, I said, no, that's not how the legislature intended for school construction funds to be spent. So I have a track record. I've served on the board for 1 year. Please make your choice, but please look to my record when you do so.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the candidates for coming, and please, you're welcome to applaud now. So appreciate your participation. And I understand that Tom and Debbie brought cookies, and thank you very much. This program was and is not an endorsement of any of these candidates or a fundraiser for any candidate or party. We wanted to bring you the information directly. Again, we thank you, North Beach TV, Daryl Proust, Scott Johnston, John Reed, Rick Beveridge, thank you for the audio, Dave Bunch, Janet the timekeeper, and Mike the timekeeper, the Lions Club, Gary Johnson, Jeff Moyer, Voice of the Shores, all of the volunteers, the candidates, and the citizens of Ocean Shores. And thanks again, Debbie and Tom. And I thank you for attending. I appreciate that very much. This is the end of our forums.